Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Roundup. Blizzard could be in for a rough year without a BlizzCon. Valorant's popularity has, it's got some entrepreneurs trying to make a pretty darn quick buck, and Riot seemingly are on the warpath against them. Then Google just made their best ever decision for Stadia, but let's be realistic about that later. And CDPR are very confident in hitting Cyberpunk 2077's release date despite everything. Plus, of course, even more news. First, patrons, cheers. We've got three things. Number one, daily briefing. All you need to know boiled down into one place. Number two, Fantasy Loot Month. You'll get a big bunch of stuff straight from our game team to your mailbox. And then three, the weekly. Right now, V1 is a weekly wrap-up, but stay tuned as we work to add more stuff to that. So there you go, all that's on our Patreon. A big thank you to them for aiding us. This is all via them. And with that said, let's get into the news. So to kick us off, BlizzCon 2020. It should be Blizzard's follow-up to their promising, but in terms of dates, sparse 2019 showing. You know, where they could finally capitalize on all the groundwork that they have been laying, supposedly. Or, well, maybe not, because in a surprisingly candid announcement, Blizzard have said that, well, they now cannot say whether that BlizzCon is feasible, even though normally it would be in November. Their plans are usually finalized quite early, but basically they might not even know for a few months. Now, they of course have been sorting things out despite working from home, given that everything is going on. Now, there's a saving grace here, and it's one that makes a lot of sense for Blizz. They could just do what everyone else is doing. They could go digital, and that would free up, that would free up the slowing of progress of not knowing if the show is going to be in person. I mean, really, if they provided not much details in Overwatch 2 while Valorant was on the horizon, and by that stage maybe even out, yeah, it wouldn't look good. And Diablo 4, of course, I mean, we need to get more info, especially because this is now a time of stiff ARPG competition. Thing is, though, digital would make complete sense for Blizz more than anyone else. Why? The virtual ticket. BlizzCon is big business, unlike a lot of those shows for the companies who are showing there, and that's especially with the ticket getting people in-game cosmetics. And trust me, World of Warcraft people, they will get that virtual ticket for those mounts and the other cosmetics. Now, you might be thinking, okay, BlizzCon, usually in November, so would it not be fine? Well, we don't know when people will be able to travel about the place freely. We don't know when lockdowns will lift. And even if those lockdowns do lift a bit, well, an event so massive needs months of lead-in time to get everything prepared and produced. And that's not even to mention, say, the impact on, like, the event organization and support industry over the next few months that, of course, would be supporting a BlizzCon. That's grim. Hopefully everything does get back on the road soon. But to be frank with you here, even if it does, Wave 2 of this, maybe Wave 3 by that stage, it could get us. And if full lockdowns aren't required, well, I think we can be pretty sure that mass gatherings of 25,000 people in a very close, sweaty space, they certainly would be off the table. Next up, Google. So this week, they've actually done something that they should have done quite a while ago. You know, actually let people play Stadia easily. Anyone with a Gmail address now can access the service completely free of charge. Though, of course, they may still need to purchase the games that they want to play. What's good, though, is this does come with 2 free months of Stadia Pro, and that does include, of course, access to 9 select games for free. Now, the existing Stadia Pro subscribers, I don't know where they are, but there's maybe 7 of them, but they're not going to be charged for the next 2 months, so they're not getting left out, which is at least good. There is a downside to this, very slightly. Default settings are being dropped to 1080p from 4K. That's to ease bandwidth concerns now that everybody is at home, though that's just the default. It can manually be turned back up. A bit like how YouTube defaults, I think, to, it's either 480 or 720, but you can manually turn it back to 1080. Not that the games in Stadia were running at 4K anyway, as many people, especially Digital Foundry, they really led the charge on doing the research, the digging work there. Now, in a way, this could be big for Google. Previously, the only way to access Stadia was to shell out $100 for the premium edition, plus, of course, the cost of games on top of that, basically making it, especially with a subscription, as expensive as a console-ish. That's something we've discussed a lot on this channel and just how stupid it was of a business model, but this could be a good decision for Google regarding Stadia. It could actually lead to some positive movement. It's one they should have made many months ago. Although I'll say this, like, everyone is stuck at everyone's stuck at home right now. I think Stadia being free won't be enough to grab people's attention, but if the Stadia Pro games are only for free on Stadia, then people might just, bite the bullet and use Stadia, even if it is dealing with a little bit more latency, just so they can try those games. Still though, and especially now with this going on, the lack of a Stadia base edition that you can just log into for free, right, with your Gmail account, that's really questionable. I mean, how hard is it to just flick that on, right? It, to me, almost seems like this 2-month free period of Pro could just be them waiting to then put free out. So we'll have to see how the wider gaming audience actually responds to this, if they try to just use it to get some games for free. But I think it's clear that their premium angle to it isn't going anywhere overall, but I think it's also clear that I don't think the premium angle has worked that well. Let's be realistic here. I don't think Stadia Pro has done that well, and they're now giving out 2 months for free. Surely if they just wanted to get this into more people's hands, they would flick on the free version. So, yeah, I still don't have that much confidence in Stadia as a service. And I think, these are things that should have been there at launch, right? And that just, to me, really does reinforce and make it really do just seem like they just launched this 6 months too early, and absolutely to its detriment, because it's got a terrible rap. A true minimum viable product. And it just shows you, they're a tech company. They're great at making utilities, and they're pretty bad at making consumer services. Will this be enough, though, to make people actually pay attention to Stadia as a platform? Hard to tell, but to be honest, if you're at home and you're into video games, well, you've probably got a PC or a console anyway. So, I don't know. I don't think it's going to go that well for them. Then next up, in a financial report this week, CD Projekt Red's CEO told investors that the studio's goals have not changed and that Cyberpunk 2077 is still on track for its September release, which is obviously great to hear. They basically said that the game is content complete and that right now they are just fixing bugs and polishing it up. They also then talked about DLC. It's, basically the DLC is going to be revealed before launch, and they are going to be making no less than Witcher 3. Which basically amounts to a whole bunch of story expansion content. They also revealed that the next-gen version of the game is going to be a separate SKU, but that they don't plan it for the console launch, but the good thing here is, and keep in mind, it's going to be a free upgrade for Series X players, with CD Projekt Red saying that over on the PlayStation side, it's basically up to PlayStation, and they will let us know as soon as Sony actually make their policy clear on that. Of course, the whole smart delivery thing was a big selling point for Microsoft with the Series X. They also said that they're determined to go ahead with the launch despite, quote, these troubling times, and they feel they are capable of achieving it. The investors were told basically that the studio's long-standing strategy of avoiding debt and accumulating large cash reserves, that basically just means that, yeah, they're grand for now, and that they will be okay if there are any hardships of, say, retail distribution in the current climate. So, undoubtedly a bold statement to make, certainly a good one for their fans, though. Of course, you'll probably also have in mind that, like Sony, they outed distribution issues as one of the main reasons behind The Last of Us 2's pretty high-profile delay. Though, in fairness, the September Cyberpunk release, that is going to be more friendly to retail, given the likelihood of reduced lockdowns. So yeah, there you go. Obviously, plans could change, of course, but as it stands, CD Projekt Red appear pretty darn confident that they can deliver a full, satisfying, polished, bug-free, hopefully-ish, there'll be shippable bugs probably, but a good launch for Cyberpunk. Part of me actually wonders if they just don't care that much about the retail issues because it's kind of guaranteed success in PC. Like, the PC pre-orders have outstripped the console ones, and of course on PC, well, it's all digital, and that's a little bit less the case for the consoles. Either way, I think CD Projekt Red will just go from strength to strength with this one. Then next up, the PS5 controller was revealed, and you know what, I actually do think it's pretty darn newsworthy and worth us talking about. It was then instantly mocked for its color scheme, which was kind of funny. Sony do seem undeterred though, and they have been gushing about its feature set since its unveiling. Right, the DualSense features adaptive triggers, which I think is a really good feature, a built-in microphone, which is, I guess, pretty obvious, but it still does have a 3.5mm audio jack, which I love. Now, its killer feature, though, appears to be haptic feedback. Sony basically want us to be able to feel next-gen games, and they view the haptic feedback as a really strong immersive tool. Like on their marketing, they're talking about driving a car through the mud, and like that being a very powerful sensation that you could feel while you are playing using that controller. Now that might sound, say, minor compared to everything else, but it's one of the things that I think really could help them more than anything really to bring games into a bit more of sort of a new realm. Strong haptics, right? They do way more than we imagine just to engage us. And if you've ever played VR, you really probably feel that. And while obviously the core of the game is the most important thing, well, a lot of those other things, they can be elevated by features like this. So it is nice to see an improvement there. Now, as a PS5 only feature, I mean, yeah, we're probably just going to have to rely on the Sony exclusives to properly make use of it. I know that, say, a lot of people disliked the original 6-axis controller of the PS3 because it didn't have rumble on launch. And I'll say this, trust me, as an experienced VR player who has used the haptics there, they are really good these days. Like, you would be amazed how good haptics are if you've not used them yet. Trust me, they are more than just rumble and you really can feel it. It could be a very strong feature indeed. I mean, hell, even on my phone, which is like one of the iPhones, like, I basically hold my finger down, I long press on a thing on the screen for like my camera or my flashlight, and the haptics are so strong that it kind of makes this like a nice feeling and an accompanying audible click, and it sort of feels like a bit of a button. So, you know, applying these things to a controller that's really trying to do it well, really trying to bring us like a next gen of haptics, and if they can pull that off, there's a lot of just very satisfying little things that you're probably not going to notice that much because, well, you'll be really immersed in the game, and they probably will be helping you get immersed. And certainly I'll give this to Sony. This seems to be something that Xbox are not focusing on, so it's a unique selling point for them. Then I guess another thing is the controller's design. I mean, it's a bit weird. It seems a bit less like just generic consumer product and a bit more Detroit Become Human. Yep, it's certainly brave, it's interesting looking, it's definitely got them attention though. I'll say another thing, at least it's got a USB Type-C port, which I'm very much into. But yeah, I mean, overall for Sony's marketing, I think it shows that playing hard to get is exciting people. Like, they've been really close to their chest with a whole bunch of things, and there's certainly a lot of just like activity online for this controller. So maybe their strategy of building hype is actually working. I mean, certainly Xbox have revealed what their console looks like, what their controller looks like, and they have looked really confident, but I think more people are talking about this PS5 controller than have been talking about the Xbox one, and perhaps we'll see the same thing when Sony actually unveil what the PS5 looks like. So, there you go, a console update, but next, let's move on. Next up, as you have no doubt noticed, Valorant is pretty darn big at the moment. If you want more info on that and the Overwatch competition, then you can check out our report. Now, you can get access to the beta via randomized Twitch drops, and of course, as the hype takes over, what's happening? People are getting more and more desperate to play the game. So, enter the scalpers. You'd think it would be difficult to price gouge beta access to a free game, but apparently not. People have been selling beta keys for upwards of $200 online, although the price is of course steadily dropping. Now, Riot of course are not particularly happy about this. You could say they're on the warpath, and people are advised that purchased accounts may be banned, and of course Riot have already been banning, they say, a pile of account sellers in order to actually free up more beta entitlements to people. So, there you go, a Valorant update, and next up, well, let's stick on the FPS news. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and of course, the art of making money. Activision are doing a bit of an Activision. Basically, right, Modern Warfare's store seems to be engaging in, yeah, a bit of trickery. They push new cosmetics like the Tamagotchi, new operators, or say an attack dog finisher, and they put them all in these sort of chunky bundles in the $20 range. Now, there's nothing wrong with that realistically, but the issue comes later on. The next season pass, I think it's kind of scummy. The next season pass has reskins of some of the items from those bundles, sometimes even more valuable ones. For an example, the Attack Dog's reskin being the dog from Call of Duty Ghosts. I think if they were more upfront about the short period of exclusivity with those things that are in the bundles, then maybe the player base wouldn't feel like they're being tricked out of their cash, right? Because a bundle comes out, you expect that if you buy that bundle, you'll get the things in the bundle and they'll be decently exclusive feeling. So for it to then come out in the Battle Pass, that is pretty scummy. Now, is this as scummy as what they were doing with guns in the loot boxes for Black Ops 4? No, it is not. But I still do think it is pretty scummy. And it actually comes to mind that at one point they did this accidentally sort of with Fortnite, where they sort of had duplicated, it was like a reskin of something, I forget exactly. But as soon as the player base said, hey, like, Epic, what's going on here? Epic refunded people and fixed the problem. So certainly Epic behaved pretty reasonably when they got called up for the same thing. Seems like Activision really are just being, well, pretty straightforward in what they're trying to do here. Well, by straightforward, I don't mean sort of super honest with you. I mean just, shameless, right? They're doing it. They're obviously doing it. people are going to buy it, and I mean, they don't seem to care if people are pissed off. Then next, in event news, E3 will not be doing a digital event this year after all, and that was confirmed earlier this week. Instead, the ESA said they're going to be working with exhibitors to promote and showcase individual company announcements. Which, I mean, sounds exactly like a normal E3 anyway. And then with next year's E3 dates already being announced, it basically just looks like the ESA are cutting their losses for 2020. Probably a good move, and yeah, I mean, I could say that E3 would be missed, but the important part of E3 was never E3. It was the exhibitors. They're going to be doing their digital events anyway, with or without the ESA, so yeah, basically, it doesn't really matter. And then finally, a nice positive story to round things up. So Borderlands 3 is doing something kind of interesting. Real life science. Yes, Borderlands Science is a minigame where players can solve colored block puzzles to actually help scientists compare and map microbes. Basically, computers are not super good at the job, and so the project was designed to basically just, well, they say, quote, help align the gaming community with the biomedical field. It's a surprisingly positive addition from Gearbox, actually, but of course it does come shortly after they were accused, well, Randy Pitchford was accused, and I suppose their management, of denying developers promised bonuses for Borderlands 3. Which, you know, was a massive, massive dick move from them. Of course, they're not the first people to do this. As an EVE Online player, I think I remember, well, I was an EVE Online player, sort of on and off again for a while, but anyway, getting to the point, they seem to have a similar thing going on there where you could basically do these like little puzzles which ended up helping out with, biotech research or biomed research. So that was pretty cool. And of course, there's a lot of other good things going on, like folding at home, right? There's protein folding going on to help with the current nasty thing going around the planet. So yeah, it's actually nice to see where, the power of our rigs, or I guess the power of our minds, can be put to use to actually solve important problems. So there you go. That's it for today's gaming news. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. And with that, I'll see you next time.